In this film, we're going to think about how the internet has had an effect on people's careers. Why does the internet matter? Why do these digital technologies that we're talking about matter for people's careers? So you might want to pause this lecture and just give it a bit of thought for yourself. How has the internet changed your career? If you think about when you first encountered the internet, it might be something that's been with you ever since you can remember, or it might be something that you remember perhaps first engaging with. But where has it become important in your career, in your learning choices, in your work choices, and in the way that you do your work? And this is, I think, the key thing to think about. Now, obviously, you might want to think more about how it's changed over the last 9 months to a year while you've been dealing with the pandemic. It's obviously, for many people, the internet has become more important. We'll move on now. I think we increasingly learn online, whether we're actually doing formal e-learning as you're doing here, where you're not physically ever in the same space as somebody, as your teacher or as other students, or whether you're doing a more blended form of learning where you're actually engaging with learning face-to-face but using online resources. We're always using online resources as part of our learning. We're also finding that the way that we find work, the way that we build our careers, the way that we discover what jobs are available, and our actual working day is conducted online. So over the last year, I've spent almost every day online, Zoom meetings, emails, all of the different technologies that I'm using routinely. So it's absolutely profoundly layered into my work. So our careers are taking place online at least as much as they are taking place face to face, and over the last year perhaps even more. And because of that, we can inevitably do it well. And so I'm just giving you this as an example. It's a woman called Amy Bateman who's a career coach, and she's made a lot of videos and online resources which are about career, and so if you wanted to look at her, you'll find lots of useful things that you might find interesting and useful. But I think also if you step back a step, you might find her to be a good example of somebody who's really made the most of the internet to transform herself from being somebody who's perhaps a career coach who might have a reputation within certain locality or certain businesses, to somebody who has a large online, perhaps international following for the work that she does. So she's really used this the technology of the internet to build her career. On the other hand, we can see lots of examples in the press every day, and this is one from a couple of years ago with Roseanne Barr, when her TV show was cancelled after she made a racist tweet. And we hear a lot about things like this. People who've made mistakes, people who've made themselves look stupid, or said something offensive, and then lose their jobs, have their career damaged as a result of it. And so the internet is providing this space within which our careers are being conducted, and we can therefore use it effectively. We can use it to develop our careers, or we can use it badly. Now, there's quite a lot of research on this, so we can look at what employers don't like. So there's lots of things that employers will talk about, things that they don't like. So they'll say things about unprofessional behaviour, or criticising your employer, or information about undisclosed criminal activity. There's lots of things that we can find that employers don't like. But in a way, what this tells us is something more profound, really. It tells us that employers now have access to information about us that they would not have had in the past. So if we do something wrong, we won't have to necessarily declare it. We won't necessarily have to tell anyone about it. It will be long forgotten. But with the internet, there's a kind of constant and permanent sort of set of information about us that it's very difficult to leave behind. So we start to realise that there's a set of advice that we might give to people in their career about how to manage their career, how to deal with this environment that we're seeing. But what's more profound about it is that what we're doing in giving that advice is we're accepting the kind of constant nature of surveillance and of essentially self-promotion and self-disclosure. And this is quite a big shift to the way in which we think about a career. A new job is not always a new start anymore in the way that it might have been in the past. A new job, people can still look back at who we were before. So we did some research a few years ago with some students looking at their self-presentation online, and we found that they often had a very kind of conservative idea about what employers were looking for, what they described as professionalism. But when we looked at what they actually presented online, we saw images which depicted kind of them having fun, them participating in student life with their friends, with their partners, and so on. Often, out drinking and things. And so what we felt there was that there was quite a gap between theory and practice for these students. So the students were telling us that they wanted to present themselves very professionally to employers, but they were not actually doing that. And this, I think, raises some quite important questions for us to think about as careers professionals when we're dealing with students or with any clients of any age, really. But ultimately, again, it raises this kind of bigger, more existential question about whether conformity to some kind of ideal defined by employers is desirable. Should we encourage students to conform, to fit with what we or they think employers want, or should we encourage diversity, self-expression, free expression of their ideas and so on? And those things are sometimes in tension, and that's quite a challenging thing for us to think about as we work with people in their use of the internet. So I've sort of brought these together into a typology of what the internet does. So the first thing is, I think the internet is a library. It's a way in which individuals can find information that informs and relates to their needs, but it also allows them to consume fake news. It's also a media channel through which individuals, groups and organisations can communicate and miscommunicate. It's a surveillance camera where their behaviour can be watched, policed and judged by those with power and by those without. So as well as employers looking at us, we also have colleagues and other people looking at us. It's a marketplace. It's where individuals can transact with opportunity providers, including employers and learning providers, although such transactions are not always equal. And so while we put ourselves forward, employers don't necessarily have to tell us as much as they ask for from us. It's a meeting place where we can engage in conversations with other people and have exchange social capital, build networks and so on. And finally, it is an arena where struggle can take place and hegemony and norms can be established, so people can argue about what's the right thing to do. So some references here for you that might be useful in thinking about some of these things. But I think in summary, the internet has had a profound impact on the organisation of people's careers. It's created new ways to learn, work and engage with other people. And this creates both opportunities and potential hazards for individuals' careers.